Hello, friends. I'm going to talk to you about some prog music again. Am I getting too much into the prog? Let me know in the comments. I don't think so. I really like it. I like prog. I'm probably going to keep talking about it. But one band I've talked about before is Yes. Yes is maybe my favorite prog band, but I hate to have favorites and rates and scores and lists and things like that. But I really like Yes. I really like them. I like three of their albums a lot more than I like all of their other stuff, though. Three of their albums, and then there's a few around them that I like as well. I like the Yes album. I like Fragile. I like Close to the Edge. That I think is like the holy trinity of Yes. Everything you need to know about Yes is right in those three records, in my opinion. Then there's Relayer, which I like as well, but it doesn't have the gravitas of those other three. Relayer is fine. It's fantastic. It is what it is, and when you listen to it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's different from these other records. Patrick Moraz is the keyboard player instead of Rick Wakeman, so it's got a different, more sort of fusion jazz flavor to it, to the keyboard stylings. Tales from Topographic Oceans is a fairly maligned album by them. It seems to be sort of a self-indulgent thing when you read stories about how it was recorded. It's almost humorous and stereotypical of bands in that era, major bands, prog bands and whatnot. But it's got its moments. It's not one I go back to a lot, but I don't know. And then there's a few other Yes albums, but those three are the mighty three that I love. The Yes album, Fragile, and Close to the Edge. And of those three, the one that I think I listen to the most is Close to the Edge. This album is on everybody's favorite prog list, number one. Sometimes it's often number one. It's often the quintessential prog album. If you want to know prog, listen to this, because this has got all the elements of prog right here on this album. It's got the extremely long album side song that goes through all these different places. It takes you on a trip, on a trippy journey. It is a total headphones album. There's things going on in the background. If you get a good quality recording of this, get a good vinyl or a good digital copy that is audiophile or whatever. But really sit down. This is one of those things. Put it on, listen to the whole thing. Really get your mind into it and go into this place of Prague, into Progland with Yes. I really like it. It's got my favorite lineup of the band. It's got Chris Squire, these guys. Rick Wakeman, Bill Bruford, John Anderson, Steve Howe, there he is. And that guy is, I believe, Eddie Offord, who is the producer of the album. And his picture is there with the band, which is interesting. Yeah, so that's the Yes album. But what I want to talk about specifically, I'm going to talk about Yes a few more times. I just am. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But one thing, I am a bass player. I played bass in bands, and I played in bands that were sort of like pop bands. We were not prog, but we were sort of a little bit informed by prog. We all grew up. All my bandmates grew up with things like Genesis and Yes, and things like that. And there are moments in here that just absolutely rock. Yes is a prog band that rocks. And I think that's one of the things that's missing in some prog bands that people tend to maybe not like as much. The bands that people say are too elite and kind of floofy and whatever. But Yes is a band that really, it rocks heavy. Bill Bruford and Chris Squire are like they are the rhythm section from the mighty volcano of Progland. They are fantastic together. And I always really loved Chris Squire's melodic bass playing. He played like a lead instrument, he played like he had never heard how to play bass. Like he didn't listen to any bass players. He just sort of picked up a bass and figured out how to play bass without being inspired by anyone, because he doesn't sound like anyone else. He's not trying to be John Entwistle, even though some people say they're sort of similar in some ways with their kind of trebly, notey approach, melodic approach. But I think Chris Squire was quite different. I think he was on a different level. And he and Bill Bruford were just so dynamic together. And this album is a great example of that dynamic junction of bass and drums. And all the other instruments on here too. Rick Wakeman is incredible. The keyboard playing on those three albums I said. Rick Wakeman is on, I think, this one in Fragile. I'm not sure, but this was, believe Fragile was maybe his first. I can't remember. But Rick Wakeman is pretty astounding with his talent. Like some people are like, yeah, he's too good for a rock band, you know. But I think he works perfectly with Yes. Everybody in this band, Steve Howe, guitar player, is unbelievable. I always loved his guitar playing because it sounds like he's just about to lose the thread. It's like he's just about to fall off the cliff, like he's almost losing it, and that gives so much drama and suspense to the music, I think. But he is so great with his solos. There's strange choices of notes and uneasiness to the playing, kind of disorienting. Where is he going? You don't. He doesn't play solos like anybody else. He's not bluesy, and he's not one of those improvisational wizards. He's not a shredder. He's got his own style of guitar playing, and like with Chris Squire. But one thing I want to mention about Chris Squire is, if you want more Yes, if you like those three albums, those are the three albums I pick: the Yes album, Fragile, and Close to the Edge, as my favorite Yes albums. But there's a fourth album, sort of a shadow album, an album that exists in another dimension between the realities of these albums. And that album is this one. It's called Fish Out of Water. Fish Out of Water. And that is Chris Squire right there, the bass player of Yes. And on this album is Bill Bruford. So you got Chris Squire and Bill Bruford. But yeah, this album is, to me, a Yes album in some ways. It is. I remember when I found this album thinking, wow, I found an album that's got my favorite bass player and my favorite drummer, and it's not bad. It's actually really good. I, in fact, put this in with those three albums as my sort of kind of fourth favorite Yes album. Even though it's not Yes, and it may be insulting to call it a Yes album because it's a Chris Squire album. It's his thing. It's his baby. He wrote the songs, and it is a 1975. It's a really good album. It's different from Yes, to be honest. It's Yes-like. The bass playing is definitely, the bass playing and drums are definitely Yes-ish, Yes-like. His voice, you realize when you listen to this, is the other voice that you hear behind John Anderson on the Yes albums. His voice got this kind of reedy voice, a horn-like, like a trumpet kind of voice that in tonality that is perfect. I think I wish he had done more solo albums because he's got a great voice. I think he maybe got used to not being a lead singer with John Anderson around, and but I think he could have been. I think this album, although it didn't get a whole lot of attention, it still kind of doesn't get a lot of attention. But there's some beautiful songs on here. Hold Out Your Hand. There's just incredible stuff. It's actually a very musical, beautiful album. Hold Out Your Hand. You By My Side. Silently Falling. And then on the other side, you got Lucky 7 and Safe. Oh, I'm gonna mess up this inner sleeve here. There goes the resale value. Anyway, I love this album. I consider it to be in the same category with those 3 Yes albums I was talking about over and over. I'm not going to name them again, but I like it. If you like Yes, if you like really well thought out, considerately arranged, beautifully orchestrated, excellently played, very melodic, and very beautiful music. There's a kind of a beauty here that maybe sometimes is lacking with Yes music. It is perhaps, I would say, if I'm going to have a favorite, my favorite of the Yes personnel's solo albums. Not a huge fan of the John Anderson solo album. Maybe haven't gotten into it enough. Some people say you have to listen to it 300 times and then it'll hit. But this one will hit right away. This one is quite good. It's a beautiful album. I still listen to this one every so often. It's kind of timeless. It's not really dated. It's got some great keyboard playing, great music, and it's Chris Squire. So there's some incredible bass playing on there. He played one of those. That bass right there. That is a Rickenbacker 4001, very similar to the one that Chris Squire played. And although when you see him playing it, it looks like his is about this big because he's such a giant. When you see him, he was huge. He was a large man. And that's actually a rather heavy and large bass. But when you see him playing it, it looks like he's playing a toy guitar or something. when a smaller sized person plays that bass, it looks really big. And that's kind of interesting. Whenever you see him, a lot of people are like, what kind of bass is that? And it's like, that's a Rickenbacker. So that's Chris Squire. Rest in peace, Chris. He was a huge inspiration, hugely fascinating bass player. Really fun to zero in on his bass parts in songs and to listen to what he was doing. These ascending and descending patterns and counter melodies and interplay with the guitar, interplay with the vocals too, that he did so well. And above all that, his interplay with the drums, especially when it was Bill Bruford, in my opinion. Nothing against their other drummer who was with them for many more years, Alan White, excellent drummer. But I just am partial to the strangeness, the uniqueness. I don't want to say strange. The uniqueness of Bill Bruford's playing, along with the incredible uniqueness and musicality of Chris Squire's bass playing. But I will stop it right here, and I'm probably going to talk about Yes again at some point, so look out. And that's it for now. I'll talk to you again real soon.